final convention on self-government for Tobago was held on the 14th of September at Signal Hill Secondary School. It was the last of 15 meetings with interest groups and stakeholders in Tobago and Trinidad, and drew one of the largest audiences seen so far. The self-government movement is directed by Tobago's Forum of Political Parties, a group who came together in April specifically to work toward this cause. The forum comprises the political parties that contested the THA elections in 2013, namely the People's National Movement, represented by chairman of its Tobago arm, Neil Wilson, the Tobago Organization of the People with leader Ashford Jack, and the Platform of Truth with leader Ho Choi Charles. The Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, Orville London, has been at the helm of the movement since its beginning. The TOP leader eventually withdrew from the process, but the two parties and the THA have continued the journey over the last 4 months, putting the organization of the meetings in the hands of a non-partisan secretariat headed by Dr. Levis Guy Obiako. From the onset, the Chief Secretary said that the convention's purpose was to ensure that the Forum of Political Leaders and the THA translate the demands of the people of Tobago into action. But it's equally important that Tobagonians give their full support to the process.
Independence was not gained by Eric Williams alone. As Mr. Charles is very fond of saying, it was Dr. Eric Williams of the PNM and Dr. Reginald Capildi of the Democratic Labour Party who went to Marlborough to send a signal to Britain that the people of Trinidad and Tobago meant business about independence, and all the people were united in this particular cause. And it is in that context that we have decided to take this particular approach to this particular phase in this long-standing struggle for self-government for Tobago. And what we're coming here for is confirmation, affirmation, for us to send a signal to those in the country, the rest of Tobago, the rest of the country, the rest of the region, that this time we mean business, this time we're doing it together, and this time we're not taking no for an answer. And I want to reiterate, we will not be able to do it except the people of Tobago send a powerful signal. I therefore want us, by the number of us who speak, by the power with which we express ourselves, by the consistency with which we express ourselves, send a powerful signal to the decision makers that we want self-government for Tobago now.
I am happy and proud to be part of what I am confident will prove to be the final chapter of Tobago's long struggle for its right to govern itself. A struggle that started many, many years ago and was aggressively pursued by the late A.N.R. Robinson and Dr. Winston Murray in 1977 without full resolution. Since then, my friends, several groups have sought to advance the process by consulting consistently with various sectors of the population. In late 2012, a poll was conducted in Tobago to determine what was the greatest desire of Tobagonians at that time. Over 1,400 respondents were interviewed. 97% of them confirmed that internal self-government was their most cherished wish. This result was in consonance with the views expressed by most Tobagonians over the years. It was no surprise, therefore, that on Tuesday, the 7th of January 2014, the leaders of the PNM, the TOP, and the TPT, representing the Tobago political parties, agreed on a collective approach to Tobago's struggle for the level of autonomy befitting an equal partner in the sovereign democratic state of Trinidad and Tobago.
Democratic self-government will allow you, the rest of Tobago, and the administration that you will have the opportunity to put in place will give you the chance to properly develop your agriculture, providing things like access roads, markets, even crop insurance for your farmers. We will do that in Tobago if you have self-government. You can't do it now. It will allow you to develop the tourism that you want. It will allow you to build your new communities. Democratic self-government will give you the opportunity to protect your historical sites. And as you know, we have a tremendous history where that is concerned. To allow you the chance to see about your beaches, some of the finest in the world, and to protect the environment. To allow you to protect your Boku Reef. It will allow you to develop your sports. It will give you the opportunity to deal with your land titles overnight. I remember after Hurricane Flora, there was a report prepared by the team that came here. And one of the things that they said, that if you do not fix the land issue in Tobago, you cannot fix the development of Tobago. We're still there. That is how many years ago? 51 years ago. We're still there. That's what self-government means, not what people are talking about. It will allow us to deal with the critical issue of our infrastructure too, including our airport. That's what self-government would give you.
The Secretariat worked along with the Commission of Self-Government, which was set up to review and share legislation that embodies the demands of the people of Tobago. That commission is headed by convener Alan Richards and supported by Dr. Vern Allen, Deborah Moore-Miggins, and Senior Counsel Gilbert Peterson. Mr. Richards explains Tobago's historic journey to self-government.
As far back as the 19th century, the late 19th century, when the bicameral legislature was abolished and the Crown Colony government was established in Tobago, and the annexation to Trinidad followed, all of that was done without consultation and participation of the people. Tobago was consequently designated a ward of, ultimately Trinidad and Tobago, initially it said a ward of Trinidad, and it continues in very large measure as a ward, both in terms of the administrative reality and also of the way people conceive of the relationship between Trinidad and Tobago, including Tobagonians. But we just needed to note that, and perhaps that might still be relevant, that the Legislative Council at the time, and that's the Legislative Council of the Tobago House of Assembly, passed a resolution that we should revert to self-government that existed before 1889 if this union didn't work. We fast forward to independence, and the same thing happened. We had major groups in the nation had inputs into what the independence constitution should look like. Tobago, as an element, a constituent element of the nation, did not have such an input. Similarly, when we came to the Republican status, we weren't consulted in a structured and participative manner. And subsequent to that, and almost on the heels of the Republican Constitution, we had the internal self-government motion moved, as so many of the speakers before have mentioned. Again, in a structured way, the parties from Tobago would have had the people involved, but in a structured way, there was a lack of involvement. In fact, the Simongal draft that Simongal was commissioned to do was not accepted, and that would have had more of the inputs from the people of Tobago in that informal setting. The 1996 Act was perhaps even a little bit worse in that regard. This Act was prepared by a committee. There was no input from Tobago. And even if we had a House of Assembly resident on the island and ostensibly responsible for the business of the island, that THE wasn't consulted before the 1996 Act was passed. At the passage of every one of these acts, immediately there was discontent with what was passed, and we never felt that what was passed would have given us what was being sought. So immediately there was another round of disaffection, looking to move to the other state. So what we are saying is, perhaps at this time, what we ought to be seeking to do is to get a state of organization, a state of relationship that would persist and sustain over a period of time without us immediately on passage feeling dissatisfied with what has been passed. There are certain economic implications of the 1889 imperial decree that still exists today. That decree dismantled whatever fiscal responsibility Tobago had for itself. Couldn't collect customs duties and all of those things because we became an intertwined custom union. And that exists today. That's one of the things people are saying that we need to change. So much so. And it has worked to the detriment of the island and contributes to the psyche that Tobago does not meaningfully contribute to the purse, because almost all transactions are conducted through Trinidad. There's virtually nothing that comes to Tobago. So all the customs duties, VAT, and all those other taxes that you pay are not registered as, because they're not collected in Tobago, and people say Tobago doesn't collect any revenue, which is a fallacy. And it's a fallacy born of the way the fiscal arrangements are structured. And more than that, because there is no way of recording properly what that contribution is. But the thing is that people use that to say that you're not contributing, and consequently you're asking for too much when you're not contributing anything at all.
Some of the documents examined by the Commission were: Tobagonians then took to the floor to state their agreement with the movement for the island's self-government.
I'm also happy that I think I'm getting the impression that the terminology is now correct to be talking about self-government. Let us all drop the internal, please. We have to have our chief secretary, or whatever he or she is called, and our prime minister meeting regularly if equality of status is to find true expression.
I maintain, for your consideration, that our presence here is a new beginning. I'm putting it to you, brothers and sisters, that autonomy for Tobago is a must. Say a must. A must again. And we have to move on.
Every minute that Tobago remains without autonomy, the fate of the future of the unborn deteriorates. We have felt the pain of residing in the smaller entity of what is known as a Twin Islands relationship, in which there is to be equity between the entities. Those of us who deal with relationships are only too aware that when the status of relationship in which there is inequity must be adjusted, the adjustment becomes the subject of great conflict. In principle, Tobagonians, that which we call intangible is paramount. I call for patriotism. We must know who we are, and we must stand up for who we are. I call for discipline. I call for appropriate, and that is Tobago-specific education. We must know about our island, we must know about our culture, and we must stand up for it.
I am very comfortable this evening. Because, ladies and gentlemen, having spent most of my life outside of Tobago, and to come back home and to see that equality wasn't the accepted norm in Tobago, I wasn't pleased. I remember my mother told me, my mother, Mrs. Pearl Pollard, who was previously a member of the Tobago House of Assembly, she told me she could not understand why Tobago was not walking side by side with Trinidad. And ladies and gentlemen, let me just mention here, over the past 14 years since I returned to Tobago, I have been working with an organization that is based in Trinidad. And I know how hard it is as a Tobagonian. You have to fight to let them just remember Tobago. So many things will be said, Trinidad, Trinidad. And I will have to say, what about Tobago? And it is very important for us as Tobagonians to do as the other speakers said. We have to stand up and fight. We Tobagonians have got to shout, and if necessary, we're going to walk from Charlottesville to Crown Point, because we are insisting that we must have self-government.
This exercise this afternoon is an excellent example of self-determination at work. Tobago must determine the form or system of government we think is best for Tobago. We must not abdicate or give up this responsibility to any other group of people. The next key word is nationalism. This is more challenging for Tobago. Nationalism means, among other things, that deep sense of pride that one has for one's country. Pride in country, pride in national anthem, pride in the institutions, pride in national flag. We as Tobagonians have to have pride in the geographical space we call Tobago. As Tobagonians who take great pride in the institution called the Tobago House of Assembly, we must confront the agents of central government and let them know in loud and clear terms that what they are doing is wrong and will not be condoned. Their encroachment on the powers of the Tobago House of Assembly is contradictory to the march for self-government. Self-reliance is the next key word we should bear in mind in our march toward self-government or full autonomy. As the word implies, we must rely on ourselves. We must depend on ourselves. We must rely on ourselves for the food we eat. We must produce all the food we need, export the surplus. We must rely on ourselves to produce the doctors, the nurses, the engineers, the electricians, the cadre of efficient and effective public servants. We must produce all our teachers. We must produce our lawyers, our architects. We must produce all the mason, carpenters, all the skilled workmen. This requires a quantum leap in education.
I believe that at this point in time, we need to develop a national political strategy for moving these demands forward, a national legal strategy, an international legal strategy, and an international political strategy. I say that because there are so many mechanisms that are there before us so that all this work does not become a dust collector. We can't just hand it over and wait for people in their own time, at their own will, to grant to us what we are asking for. There are various mechanisms that are in place, including the Universal Periodic Review, the UPR, which is a national document which the government of Trinidad and Tobago is duty-bound to prepare and to involve all sectors of the population in preparing. This document reflects the human rights aspirations of Tobagonians. And that is why I want to also add my voice to Mrs. Miggins to say, bullet point number 2, we need to put back the word constitutional. These aspirations must be included in the Constitution and in the National Administrative Framework.
And then the public was invited to vote on the 11 major issues Tobagonians said needed to be dealt with.
The responsibility of the Tobago administration to formulate and implement policy on all matters affecting the lives of the people resident in Tobago. All those in favor? Those against? Equality of status between the islands and a constitutional, legislative, and administrative framework reflecting such equality. Please vote by show of hands. Those in favor? Those against? A federal type system of governance. Those in favor? Any against? Jurisdiction and control over economic resources in Tobago's defined geographic space. Those against? Delineation of the boundaries of each island. Freedom of the Tobago administration to make laws to govern Tobago. Those in favor? Those against? Ability to borrow to fund Tobago's development. Any against? Authority and responsibility in the Tobago administration to formulate and implement fiscal policy, including taxation measures. Those supporting? Those against? Removal of cabinet dominance and override of decisions made. Any against? A legal framework providing for the wider participation of Tobago society in the decision-making process of the Tobago administration. Any against? Management and control of the inter-island transportation systems to reside in. Any against?
That out of the way, it was time to move the resolution. That resolution states,
be it resolved that this Convention of the People of Tobago, meeting here at the Signal Hill Secondary School today, September 14, 2014, A, agrees and asserts that the issues fundamental to democratic self-government for Tobago include inter alia. 1, responsibility of the Tobago administration to formulate and implement policy on all matters affecting the lives of the people resident in Tobago. 2, equality of status between the islands and a constitutional, legislative, and administrative framework reflecting such equality. 3, a federal type system of governance. 4, delineation of the boundaries of each island. 5, jurisdiction and control over economic resources in Tobago's defined geographic space. 6, freedom for the Tobago administration to make laws to govern Tobago. 7, ability to borrow to fund Tobago's development. 8, authority and responsibility in Tobago administration to formulate and implement fiscal policy, including taxation measures. 9. Removal of cabinet dominance and override of decisions made in Tobago by the Tobago administration. 10. Legal framework providing for the wider participation of the Tobago society in the decision-making process of the Tobago administration. 11. Management and control of the inter-island transportation systems to reside in Tobago. B. Do hereby authorize, instruct, and mandate the Forum of Political Leaders to take all proper and necessary steps to achieve and secure democratic self-government for Tobago in the shortest possible time. C. Requires that the Forum ensures that the self-government secured for Tobago includes the appropriate provisions to treat with issues agreed and asserted in A. 1 to 11 above. I do hereby move this resolution.
Those who are in favor of the motion, please. Thank you.
This paved the way for the public to second the motion.
Who is going to second the motion?
My name is Vanessa Boyce, and I would like to second the motion for democratic self-government for Tobago.
There have been 11 issues which have been outlined as important and have been brought to the people at this convention and will be crafted into a document that will be taken to Parliament of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago for local parliamentary debate and discussion, or if necessary, international debate on the rights of the people of Tobago. In this context, the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, as a member state of the United Nations, and the people of Tobago's right to self-determination as listed in the Charter of the United Nations in compliance with the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, will begin. The transformation of our rights as a people has begun in this resolution. You, the people of Tobago, have said that patriotism and love for Tobago must transcend political polarization. The people of Tobago's right to self-determination and their autonomy is on the national and international agenda and will not be off the agenda until it is achieved by the people of Tobago.
4 months, 15 meetings and consultations, and a loud yes from the Tobagonian people now authorizes, instructs, and mandates the Forum of Political Leaders to take all proper and necessary steps to achieve and secure democratic self-government for Tobago in the shortest possible time.